The briefing room aboard the Galactic Sentinel was an architectural marvel, its walls lined with glowing panels displaying the Empire's most guarded secrets. But the tension in the air was a reminder that even the most advanced technology couldn't shield its occupants from the gravity of their mission. Commander Thalix, a towering figure in the Empire's elite military corps, loomed over the holographic display of a swirling black hole. His metallic uniform reflected the cold light of the projection, a fitting match for his steely gaze. This, he said, his voice a low growl, is PX-1127, a rogue black hole tearing through the outer sectors. Its trajectory puts it on a collision course with 3 critical systems. The Empire cannot afford to lose those resources, or the lives of the billions who depend on them. He gestured to the data streaming beside the projection. The mission is simple: deploy a probe into the event horizon and gather data to devise a countermeasure. Of course, he added, his tone dripping with contempt, simple doesn't mean safe. This is a one-way trip. You'll be flying into oblivion. The room fell silent. Among the gathered scientists and engineers, whispers of unease passed like static electricity. The Empire's reputation for ruthlessness was no secret, and volunteering for such a mission was tantamount to signing a death warrant. Yet, at the back of the room, a group of 5 humans exchanged subtle glances. Their leader, Dr. Elena Voss, stepped forward. Her sharp eyes and unassuming demeanor belied a mind that had outwitted even the Empire's top strategists. "We'll do it," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "We'll lead the mission." Commander Thalix raised an eyebrow. "Humans," he said, the word laced with disdain. "I didn't think your kind had the spine for this." Elena's expression didn't waver. "We've survived worse," she replied, "and we know the risks. All we ask is access to the data we collect. Real time." Thalix studied her for a moment before nodding. "Granted, but remember this, failure is not an option. The Empire does not reward incompetence." As the room emptied, Elena regrouped with her team. Dr. Arun Patel, the astrophysicist, Captain Mara Lang, the pilot, Jacob Cross, the engineer, and Serena Kale, the communications specialist. Each brought a unique skill set to the table, but what united them was their secret mission. "We're not just here to study a black hole," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is our chance to gather intel on the Empire's vulnerabilities. If we succeed, we can cripple their control and give humanity a fighting chance." The team nodded in unison. They had trained for months under the guise of scientific research, their true purpose hidden from the Empire's prying eyes. This mission was their ticket to uncovering the weaknesses of a regime that had subjugated their homeworld for generations. The next day, the team boarded the Eclipse Runner, a state-of-the-art vessel equipped for the impossible task ahead. As they strapped in, the ship's AI, a dispassionate voice named Argus, began its pre-launch diagnostics. "Destination, PX-1127, Argus announced. "Mission parameters, high risk, low probability of survival. Commencing launch in T-10 seconds." Elena took a deep breath as the countdown began. Around her, her team mirrored her resolve, their faces set with determination. The roar of the engines drowned out all other sounds as the Eclipse Runner hurtled into the void, leaving behind the safety of the fleet. As the ship approached the black hole, its gravitational pull became a palpable force. Instruments beeped furiously, warning of the immense tidal forces that threatened to tear the vessel apart. "Steady," Mara said, her hands gripping the controls. The pilot's voice was calm, but her knuckles were white with tension. "Approaching the event horizon," Argus reported. "Structural integrity at 92%. Initiating data collection protocols." Inside the cockpit, the holographic displays lit up with streams of data. Arun leaned over his console, his fingers dancing across the interface as he analyzed the readings. "This is incredible," he muttered. "The gravitational waves alone." "Focus," Elena interrupted. "We're not just here for science." As the ship inched closer to the event horizon, the team's secondary mission came into play. Serena, seated at a communications terminal, accessed the encrypted channels the Empire had provided. Using a backdoor they had installed during their training, she began extracting classified information from the Empire's network. "We're in," she whispered, "downloading fleet schematics, supply routes, command protocols. This is everything we need." But their success came at a cost. An alarm blared, and Argus's voice cut through the chaos. "Warning, anomaly detected. Gravitational surge imminent. Structural integrity compromised." The ship lurched violently, throwing the team against their restraints. Elena's vision blurred as she fought to stay conscious, her mind racing with the stakes of their mission. "Hold it together," she shouted. "We've come too far to fail now." As the Eclipse Runner danced on the edge of oblivion, the team faced a harrowing choice: abandon their mission and retreat to safety, or risk everything to complete their task and strike a blow against the Empire. Empire. The Eclipse runner groaned as the gravitational forces intensified. Mara's hands were steady on the controls, but beads of sweat trickled down her temple. Arun continued monitoring the data, his mind racing to calculate adjustments to stabilize the ship. "We're losing structural integrity," Jacob warned from the engineering station. His voice was tight with urgency as his hands worked feverishly to reroute power to the shields. "If we don't back off soon, this ship will fold like paper." Elena turned to Serena. "How much longer do you need?" Serena's fingers danced over her console. "The download's at 73%. Just a little more time." "Time is a luxury we don't have," Jacob snapped, glancing at the display showing the strain on the ship's hull. Elena's mind raced, balancing the risk against the mission's importance. The information they were gathering could shift the balance of power, giving humanity a chance to resist the Empire's dominance. She clenched her fists. "Hold this position. Serena, you've got 2 minutes." The ship jolted violently, alarms blaring as the gravitational forces surged. Argus's monotone voice added to the chaos. "Structural integrity at 61%. Catastrophic failure imminent if trajectory is not adjusted." Come on, Serena muttered under her breath, her eyes fixed on the progress bar. "Serena," Elena barked. "Almost there. 94%. Another violent lurch through the team against their restraints. Sparks erupted from a nearby console, and the lights flickered. Jacob cursed as he scrambled to stabilize the power grid. "Got it," Serena shouted triumphantly. "Download complete. Full retreat," Elena ordered. "Mara, get us out of here." Mara didn't hesitate. Her hands flew over the controls, firing the ship's thrusters in a carefully calculated burst to pull them away from the event horizon. The Eclipse runner shuddered, resisting the pull of the black hole with every ounce of its power. "Trajectory adjusted," Argus announced. "Distance from event horizon increasing. Structural integrity stabilizing." The crew let out a collective breath of relief as the ship emerged from the gravitational maelstrom. The black hole loomed behind them, a reminder of the peril they had just escaped. "We're alive," Jacob said, slumping back in his chair. "Barely. Alive and successful," Elena said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She turned to Serena. "Let's see what we've got." Serena plugged a secure drive into her console, bringing up the files she had extracted. The holographic display filled with data, fleet movements, schematics of Imperial ships, and command protocols. Arun leaned in, his eyes widening as he scanned the information. "This is incredible," he said. "With this, we can identify their weaknesses, blind spots in their fleet deployments, vulnerabilities in their supply chains, and the specs for their flagship," Serena added, highlighting a detailed schematic. "We could cripple their operations with a single strike." Elena nodded, her mind already calculating their next steps. "This is what we came for. Now we just have to get it back to the Resistance." But their relief was short-lived. Argus's voice interrupted their planning. "Proximity alert. Imperial vessel detected on intercept course." A chill ran through the crew. Mara quickly brought up the external sensors, revealing a sleek Imperial destroyer closing in fast. "They must have tracked our transmission," Jacob said, his voice grim. "Can we outrun them?" Elena asked. Mara shook her head. "Not in this condition. They'll catch us before we can jump to hyperspace." Elena's jaw tightened. "Then we fight." The team sprang into action, preparing the Eclipse runner for battle. Jacob diverted power to the weapon systems, while Arun recalibrated the ship sensors to counter the destroyer's targeting systems. Serena transmitted an encrypted signal to the Resistance, warning them of the impending pursuit. As the Imperial ship closed the distance, the Eclipse runner fired its first salvo. Energy beams lanced through the void, striking the destroyer's shields. The Empire's response was swift, a barrage of plasma bolts lighting up the darkness. Mara's skills as a pilot were put to the test as she maneuvered the ship through the onslaught. "Brace yourselves," she shouted as the Eclipse runner rolled to evade another volley. The battle was fierce, the Eclipse runner outgunned but fighting with the desperation of a cornered animal. Elena coordinated the team, her voice cutting through the chaos with clarity and authority. "Target their engines," she ordered. "If we can disable their mobility, we have a chance to escape." Jacob and Arun worked in tandem, aligning the ship's weapons for a precision strike. When the opportunity came, they fired a concentrated burst of energy at the destroyer's engines. The impact was immediate. Explosions rippled along the Imperial ship's hull, and its momentum faltered. "They're losing power," Serena Serena reported. "We've got an opening. Mara, get us out of here," Elena commanded. With the Imperial ship disabled, the Eclipse runner engaged its hyperspace drive, vanishing into the void just as reinforcements appeared on the horizon. As the ship hurtled through hyperspace, the crew finally allowed themselves a moment to breathe. The tension in the cockpit gave way to a sense of triumph tempered by exhaustion. "We did it," Jacob said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "We actually did it." Elena nodded, her expression resolute. "This is just the beginning. What we've uncovered could change everything, but only if we use it wisely." The crew exchanged determined glances, their resolve stronger than ever. They had survived the deadliest mission in the galaxy, and now, armed with the Empire's secrets, they were ready to turn the tide. The crew of the Eclipse runner knew their escape was only the beginning. The data they carried was a treasure trove of intelligence that could dismantle the Empire's grip on the galaxy, but it also made them the most wanted fugitives in Imperial space. As the ship emerged from hyperspace, Mara brought it into the shadow of a barren asteroid field. The debris provided cover, but the risk of detection loomed large. "We can't stay here for long," she said, scanning the sensors. "The Empire will be looking for us, and this place isn't exactly uncharted." Elena nodded, her mind racing through their options. "We need to rendezvous with the Resistance. Serena, send a burst transmission on the secure channel. Keep it short, coordinates, and a time window. No more." Serena complied, her fingers flying over the console. "Transmission sent. Let's hope they're listening." The waiting was agonizing. Hours stretched into what felt like days as the crew took turns monitoring the sensors and tending to the ship's damage. Jacob worked tirelessly in engineering, patching hull breaches and recalibrating the power systems. "This ship's held together with hope and duct tape," he muttered as he tightened a panel. "One more hit like that and we're scrap." Arun joined him, carrying a tray of rations. "You think we'll make it?" Jacob paused, then shrugged. "If we don't, at least we'll go down swinging." "That's more than I can say for most people under the Empire's thumb." Arun nodded, his expression somber. "It's worth it, isn't it, what we're doing?" Jacob glanced at him. "You're the astrophysicist. You tell me." Before Arun could respond, Serena's voice crackled over the comms. "We've got a response. Resistance forces are sending a rendezvous signal. Coordinates are on the edge of the Draco Nebula." Elena joined them in engineering, her expression resolute. "Then let's not keep them waiting." Mara set a course. The Eclipse runner leapt back into hyperspace, the swirling vortex of stars outside the cockpit a reminder of the vastness of their journey. But as they approached the rendezvous point, their relief was short-lived. An Imperial patrol ship lay in wait, its sensors sweeping the area like a predator stalking its prey. Mara's hands flew to the controls, guiding the Eclipse runner into a nearby gas cloud to evade detection. "They must have intercepted the transmission," Serena said, her voice tight with frustration. "Can we still reach the Resistance?" Arun asked. Elena's jaw tightened. "Not without drawing attention. We'll have to deal with the patrol first." The team sprang into action, their exhaustion giving way to determination. Jacob rerouted power to the shields, while Arun calibrated the ship's weapons for maximum efficiency. Mara plotted a course through the gas cloud, using its dense particles to mask their movements. As the Eclipse runner emerged from the cloud, it unleashed a barrage of energy beams at the patrol ship. The Imperial vessel retaliated, its weapons lighting up the void in a deadly dance of fire and steel. "Target their comms array," Elena shouted. "We can't let them call for reinforcements." Serena locked onto the array, and Arun fired a precision shot that struck its core. Sparks erupted from the patrol ship as its communications went dark. "They're vulnerable," Jacob called. "We've got them." But the victory came at a cost. The Eclipse runner shuddered as a plasma bolt struck its hull, knocking out one of the engines. "Engine 3 is offline," Jacob reported. "We're losing speed." Mara gritted her teeth, her hands gripping the controls. "I can still get us to the rendezvous, but it's going to be close." The Resistance frigate, a rugged vessel bristling with weapons, appeared on the sensors just as the Eclipse runner limped toward the rendezvous point. Resistance fighters deployed to intercept the patrol ship, giving the crew a chance to dock. The moment they were aboard the frigate, Elena handed over the data drive to Commander Reyna, the Resistance leader. Reyna's eyes widened as she scanned the files. "This is more than we could have hoped for," she said, her voice filled with awe. "With this, we can strike at the Empire's core systems. Their fleet deployments, supply chains, it's all here." Elena nodded, her expression serious. "Then we need to act fast. The Empire won't take this loss lying down." Reyna agreed. "We'll convene a council immediately. The time to strike is now." As the frigate jumped to a secure location, the crew of the Eclipse runner finally allowed themselves a moment to breathe. The weight of their mission, and the hope it had ignited, settled over over them like a quiet victory. But Elena's mind was already on the next challenge. The data they had gathered was a weapon, but it would take strategy and courage to wield it effectively. And the Empire, though wounded, was far from defeated. "This is just the beginning," she said to her team, her voice steady with resolve. "We've lit the spark. Now we fan the flames." The council chamber aboard the Resistance frigate buzzed with energy. Leaders from across the Resistance factions had gathered, their faces reflecting a mix of hope and determination. At the center of the room, a holographic display projected the schematics and data extracted by the Eclipse Runner crew. Elena stood beside Commander Reyna, addressing the assembled leaders. "This information gives us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," she began. "The Empire's fleet deployments are stretched thin. If we act now, we can cripple their supply lines and strike at their command centers." One of the leaders, a burly man named Jax, raised an eyebrow. "And what about retaliation? The Empire won't just roll over. They'll come at us with everything they've got." "That's why we don't give them the chance," Elena countered. "The data shows gaps in their hyperspace relays, bottlenecks where their response time is weakest. We can strike fast, hit them where it hurts, and retreat before they can mobilize." Reyna stepped forward, her voice commanding. "Elena's right. This is the moment we've been waiting for. The Empire thinks we're scattered, disorganized. It's time to show them what a united resistance can do." The room erupted in murmurs, the leaders exchanging glances. Finally, a vote was called. The decision was unanimous. The Resistance would launch a coordinated strike. As plans took shape, the Eclipse Runner crew found themselves at the heart of the operation. Arun worked tirelessly with the Resistance's strategists, analyzing the data to identify critical targets. Jacob collaborated with engineers to upgrade the fleet's weaponry, incorporating insights gleaned from the Empire's designs. Mara trained Resistance pilots, sharing her expertise in evasive maneuvers. "The Empire's strength is their predictability," she told them. "They rely on rigid tactics. Use that against them. Be unpredictable, and you'll throw them off their game." Serena, meanwhile, focused on encryption and communication. Using the Empire's protocols, she developed countermeasures to disrupt their networks. "If we can blind their sensors," she explained, "we'll have the advantage." As the day of the strike approached, tension mounted. The Resistance fleet assembled in the shadow of a gas giant, its ships cloaked by the planet's dense atmosphere. Pilots and crew moved with a sense of purpose, knowing the risks but driven by the hope of a better future. In the hours before the operation, Elena gathered her team for a final briefing. The room was quiet as she addressed them. "This isn't just about survival," she said. "It's about proving that we can fight back, that we won't be silenced or subjugated. What we do today will echo across the galaxy." Her words hung in the air, a rallying cry that resonated with everyone present. When the fleet launched, it was a symphony of coordinated precision. The first target was an Imperial supply depot, hidden within an asteroid belt. Resistance fighters struck with surgical accuracy, disabling the facility before its defenders could respond. Next came a hyperspace relay station, a critical node in the Empire's communication network. Serena's countermeasures blinded their sensors, allowing Resistance bombers to deliver their payloads unopposed. But the real test came at the third target, an Imperial command center located on the moon of a gas giant. The facility was heavily defended, its shields and weaponry a testament to the Empire's paranoia. The Eclipse Runner led the charge, its upgraded systems tested to their limits. Mara's piloting was masterful, weaving through enemy fire as Jacob and Arun operated the ship's weapons. Serena coordinated with the Resistance fleet, ensuring their attacks were synchronized. As the command center's defenses crumbled, Elena and a team of Resistance fighters landed on the moon to secure the facility. The battle was intense, but the Empire's forces, caught off guard, were quickly overwhelmed. Inside the command center, Elena accessed its mainframe, downloading additional intelligence that would bolster the Resistance's efforts. Among the files was a trove of information on the Empire's leadership, including weaknesses that could be exploited. When the Resistance fleet regrouped, the mood was triumphant. The operation had been a resounding success, dealing a significant blow to the Empire's control. But as the fleet celebrated, Elena's mind remained focused on the challenges ahead. "The Empire will respond," she said to Reyna. "We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us." Reyna nodded. "And we will be. Thanks to you and your team, we've got the tools we need to fight back." As the Eclipse Runner crew reflected on their journey, they knew their work was far from over. The mission to PX 1127 had been the beginning of a much larger fight, one that would test their resolve and shape the future of the galaxy. But for the first time, they felt the stirrings of hope. Together, they had shown that even against overwhelming odds, resistance was possible. And as the stars lit their path, they vowed Proud to see their mission through to the end, the Resistance's victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in decades, the Empire's grip on its territories loosened. News of the successful strikes spread like wildfire, inspiring oppressed populations to rise against their oppressors. On dozens of worlds, protests erupted and underground movements gained momentum, emboldened by the Resistance's example. On Earth, a planet long under the Empire's control, the victory sparked a renewed sense of hope. The Resistance's broadcast of their success reached even the most remote settlements, reigniting the flames of rebellion. But for every spark of hope, there was a shadow of danger. The Empire's response was swift and brutal. Entire fleets mobilized, targeting suspected Resistance strongholds with overwhelming force. Civilians caught in the crossfire bore the brunt of the retaliation, their suffering a grim reminder of the Empire's ruthlessness. Aboard the Resistance's flagship, Vanguard's Dawn, Commander Reyna convened an emergency council. Elena and her team were among those present, their expressions somber as reports of the Empire's counterattacks poured in. The Empire's using scorched earth tactics, Reyna said, her voice heavy with anger. They're punishing anyone they suspect of aiding us. We've bought ourselves time, but at a terrible cost. Jacob slammed his fist on the table. We can't let this stand. We have to hit them back. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice measured. We will, but not recklessly. If we're going to stop the Empire, we need to dismantle their ability to wage war, not just react to their provocations. Reyna nodded. Elena's right. The data from the command center included critical intelligence on the Empire supply routes and key installations. We need to plan our next moves carefully. Over the following weeks, the Resistance regrouped, using the stolen intelligence to launch precision strikes. Each mission was a calculated effort to weaken the Empire's infrastructure while minimizing civilian casualties. Elena and her team were at the forefront, their expertise making them invaluable to the Resistance's efforts. But the toll of the fight was heavy. The Eclipse runner, already battered from its previous missions, bore the scars of countless skirmishes. Jacob spent every waking moment in engineering, coaxing the ship to hold together. Mara's piloting skills were pushed to their limits as she navigated through ambushes and firefights. Serena, exhausted from days of decoding and countering Imperial communications, found solace in brief moments of camaraderie with the crew. Arun, ever the optimist, kept morale high with his dry humor, even as the stakes grew higher. One night, as the team gathered in the ship's common area, Elena spoke openly about the weight of their mission. I know this hasn't been easy, she said, her voice quiet but firm. We've all made sacrifices to get this far, and we've all lost something to the Empire, but what we're doing matters. We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for everyone who believes in a better future. Her words resonated deeply, reminding the crew of why they had chosen this path. Despite the hardships, their resolve remained unshaken. The Empire's retaliation reached a fever pitch when they unveiled a new weapon, the Oblivion Array, a massive orbital platform capable of decimating entire fleets. Its destructive power was demonstrated when it obliterated a Resistance outpost in a single strike, leaving no survivors. The Resistance was faced with a dire choice. If they didn't act, the Oblivion Array would render their efforts futile. But attacking it head-on would be a suicide mission. Elena and her team volunteered for the task. Using the intelligence they had gathered, they devised a plan to infiltrate the platform and disable its power core. The mission was dangerous, with no guarantee of success, but the crew of the Eclipse runner knew it was their only chance. As the ship approached the Oblivion Array, its sleek silhouette loomed like a harbinger of doom. Mara guided the Eclipse runner into the platform's shadow, evading its sensors with the precision of a master pilot. The infiltration was tense, every step fraught with peril. Imperial guards patrolled the corridors, their presence a constant threat. Serena used her skills to hack into the platform systems, opening doors and disabling alarms as the team made their way to the power core. When they reached their destination, Jacob and Arun worked quickly to set charges on the core stabilizers. Time was of the essence. The longer they stayed, the greater the risk of discovery. Charges set, Jacob said, his voice tight with focus. Let's get out of here. As the team retraced their steps, an alarm blared. They had been discovered. Imperial soldiers converged on their position, and the corridors erupted into chaos. Mara and Elena led the defense, their weapons blazing as they fought to protect the team. Serena, carrying the detonator, sprinted ahead, her heart pounding with adrenaline. The team reached the Eclipse runner just as the charges detonated. The explosion ripped through the Oblivion Array, sending shockwaves across space. The platform's destruction was a sight to behold, its fiery demise a symbol of the Resistance's determination. As the Eclipse runner escaped leapt into hyperspace, the crew allowed themselves a moment of triumph. They had dealt a significant blow to the Empire, but they knew the fight was far from over. "This is what they'll remember," Elena said, her voice resolute. "Not the fear they tried to instill, but the hope we gave them." Her words echoed in the hearts of her crew as they prepared for the battles yet to come. The Resistance had taken its first steps toward liberation, and the galaxy would never forget their courage. The destruction of the Oblivion Array marked a turning point in the war. For the first time, the Empire's invincibility was shattered, and the Resistance gained widespread support across the galaxy. Worlds that had remained neutral began to pledge resources and fighters, their leaders emboldened by the Resistance's victories. On Earth, secret gatherings grew into full-fledged uprisings. The Empire's forces struggled to maintain control as civilians armed with nothing but determination rose against their oppressors. Elena and her crew became legends, their exploits inspiring songs, stories, and symbols of hope. But with victory came new challenges. The Empire's leadership, humiliated and desperate, tightened its grip on the systems still under its control. Curfews were imposed, dissent was punished with brutal efficiency, and entire planets were blockaded. The Resistance faced an uphill battle, its newfound momentum tempered by the Empire's ruthless countermeasures. Aboard the Resistance's flagship, a new plan began to take shape. Elena and her team, now among the Resistance's most trusted operatives, were summoned to a high-level strategy meeting. Commander Reyna, flanked by advisors and military leaders, outlined the stakes. "The Empire's leadership is fractured," Reyna said, pointing to a holographic projection of their known hierarchy. "Our intelligence suggests infighting among their top commanders. If we can exploit this division, we can strike at the heart of their power." Elena studied the projection, her mind racing. "What's our target?" Reyna gestured to a star system highlighted in red. "Erivos Prime. It's their central command hub and the seat of their military operations. If we can take it, we'll cripple their ability to coordinate their forces." The room fell silent as the enormity of the task sank in. Erivos Prime was a fortress world, its defenses unmatched. An assault would be costly, and failure would be catastrophic. Jacob broke the silence. "If we're going to do this, we'll need more than just brute force. We'll need precision, misdirection, and a lot of luck." Reyna nodded. "Agreed. This won't be a traditional battle. It will require a multi-pronged approach, covert infiltration, sabotage, and a coordinated assault." Elena glanced at her team. They had faced impossible odds before, but this mission would push them to their limits. Still, there was no hesitation in their eyes. "We're in," she said firmly. "What's the plan?" Over the next week, preparations for the assault consumed the Resistance. Teams were assigned specific roles, from disabling Erivos Prime's planetary shields to disrupting its communication networks. Elena and her crew were tasked with the most dangerous job, infiltrating the command center and capturing critical intelligence on the Empire's remaining forces. The operation began under the cover of a meteor storm, which provided natural camouflage for the Resistance fleet. As the meteors streaked through Erivos Prime's atmosphere, the Eclipse runner descended toward the planet's surface, its stealth systems engaged. The infiltration was harrowing. Imperial patrols were everywhere, their vigilance heightened by the Resistance's recent successes. Mara piloted the ship with unparalleled skill, landing it in a remote canyon outside the command center. Inside the center, the tension was palpable. Elena and her team moved with precision, navigating labyrinthine corridors and bypassing security systems. Serena's hacking skills were put to the test as she disabled surveillance networks and opened locked doors. When they reached the central control room, Arun and Jacob set to work extracting data from the mainframe. The information they uncovered was staggering: fleet movements, supply caches, and the locations of key Imperial installations. But their presence didn't go unnoticed. Alarms blared as Imperial soldiers converged on the control room. The team fought valiantly, holding their ground as Serena completed the data transfer. "We've got everything," Serena shouted, clutching the drive. "We need to move." The escape was a blur of gunfire and narrow escapes. Mara's voice crackled over the comms as she guided them back to the Eclipse runner. "You've got incoming. Get to the extraction point now." When the team finally boarded the ship, it was under heavy fire. Mara launched the Eclipse runner into the sky, weaving through enemy fighters with breathtaking skill. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, but they broke through the atmosphere and into the safety of space. The Resistance fleet awaited them, its combined firepower holding off the Imperial defenses long enough for the team to dock with the flagship. As the Eclipse runner limped into the hangar, the crew was met with cheers and relief. Elena handed the data drive to Reyna, her face etched with exhaustion but also triumph. "This is it," she said. "Everything we need to finish this." Reyna's eyes widened as she scanned the files. You've given us a chance to end this war, Elena. You and your team have done the impossible. As the resistance prepared for its final push, the mood aboard the flagship was a mixture of determination and hope. The Empire's fortress had been breached, and its secrets laid bare. The endgame was in sight. For Elena and her team, the journey had been grueling, but their resolve remained unbroken. They had faced the galaxy's deadliest threats and emerged stronger, their actions leaving an indelible mark on history. As they gathered in the ship's common area, Jacob raised a toast. To the fight ahead, he said, his voice steady, and to the galaxy we're going to build when it's over. The clinking of glasses echoed through the room, a symbol of unity and defiance. Together, they were ready to face whatever came next. The final phase of the Resistance's plan began with a speech that would echo across the galaxy. Commander Reyna stood before the assembled fleet, her image broadcast to every Resistance cell, every rebel stronghold, and every oppressed world that clung to the hope of liberation. This is the moment we've been fighting for, Reyna said, her voice resolute. The Empire has ruled through fear and oppression, but today, we show them the power of unity and defiance. Today, we reclaim our freedom. Cheers erupted across the fleet, the collective resolve of countless beings transforming into a single force. For Elena and her team, the weight of their mission was matched only by the clarity of their purpose. Aboard the Eclipse runner, the crew prepared for the assault. Jacob checked the weapon systems, Arun fine-tuned the sensor arrays, and Serena encrypted their communications. Mara sat in the cockpit, her hands steady on the controls, while Elena reviewed the final battle plan. The target was the Imperial Palace, a sprawling fortress on Erivos Prime's capital continent. It was the nerve center of the Empire, housing its remaining leadership and the technology that coordinated its fleets. Taking the palace would be the final blow, decapitating the Empire's power structure. The Resistance fleet emerged from hyperspace in a coordinated formation, their ships forming a wall of firepower. The Empire's defenses were formidable, with orbital platforms and fighter squadrons converging to repel the attack. The Eclipse runner spearheaded the assault, its stealth systems allowing it to penetrate the first line of defense. Mara's piloting was masterful, weaving through enemy fire with a precision that left even seasoned Resistance fighters in awe. As the ship descended toward the palace, the Resistance fleet engaged the Empire's forces in a battle that lit up the skies. Explosions rippled through the void as ships collided, their debris scattering like shooting stars. The Eclipse runner landed on the palace's outskirts, its crew disembarking under heavy fire. Elena led the charge, her voice cutting through the chaos as she coordinated their advance. Push forward. We need to reach the central command chamber. The palace was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each one a battleground. Resistance fighters clashed with Imperial guards, their determination driving them forward despite the odds. Serena worked furiously to disable the palace's automated defenses, her hacking skills proving invaluable. I've got the turrets offline, she called, her voice barely audible over the sounds of battle. Arun and Jacob focused on planting charges to disrupt the palace's power grid, their efforts creating chaos among the Empire's defenders. Mara provided covering fire, her sharpshooting clearing the way for the team. When they finally reached the command chamber, the Resistance faced their greatest challenge yet. The Empire's supreme commander, a towering figure encased in a suit of advanced armor, awaited them. His voice boomed through the chamber, a mix of arrogance and fury. You think you can destroy the Empire? He sneered. You are nothing but insects to be crushed beneath its might. Elena stepped forward, her gaze unflinching. The Empire's time is over. Your reign ends today. The battle that followed was intense, the Supreme Commander's armor making him a formidable opponent. But the Resistance fought with a unity and determination that the Empire could not match. Arun and Jacob used their knowledge of Imperial technology to exploit weaknesses in the armor, while Serena and Mara provided tactical support. Elena delivered the final blow, her precision strike disabling the commander's power core. As the Supreme Commander fell, the Resistance seized control of the command chamber. Elena transmitted a signal to the fleet, her voice filled with triumph. The palace is ours. The Empire has fallen. Across the galaxy, the message was met with jubilation. The Resistance's victory marked the dawn of a new era, one defined not by fear, but by hope. In the days that followed, the Resistance worked tirelessly to rebuild what the Empire had destroyed. Worlds that had suffered under its rule began to heal, their people united by the promise of a brighter future. For Elena and her team, the journey was far from over. The galaxy's scars would take generations to mend, and the challenges of governance and unity loomed large. But as they stood together on the palace steps, overlooking the liberated capital, they felt the weight of their accomplishment. This is what we fought for, Elena said, her voice steady, a chance to build something something better, Jacob grinned, and maybe a chance to finally get some rest. The team laughed, their camaraderie a testament to the bond they had forged through adversity. As the sun rose over Erivo's prime, it illuminated a galaxy transformed by their courage. The Resistance had won the war, but the story of their struggle would live on, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could prevail.